Hello and welcome to In a Spiritual Sense, where we discuss all things spiritual. From growing your intuition, speaking with spirit guides, diving into past lives, the paranormal, and more, join me, Stacey Piagno, where we work to bridge the gap between science and spirit. Hello and welcome back to In a Spiritual Sense. I'm your host, Stacey Piagno, and boy, do we have a treat for you all listening today. I'll start with this. I feel like we don't often see careers in the science world mixed with spirituality. It seems that these two categories are just that, categories. They're lanes, and it's a difference of left brain thinkers and right brain thinkers. And very rarely do we see these two lanes merge. However, it is my belief that in between all of these spaces is where all the magic occurs and where all the answers are. And I just so happen to have stumbled upon someone who is literally living right in the middle of the magic. She is not only a rocket scientist for NASA, but she is a senior system engineer within NASA for the Artemis program, which has plans to create longevity for people to visit and stay on the moon and potentially Mars. She's a mom. She's the author of the book Quantum Being. And along with her book, she works with many people in the spiritual community with quantum healing, Reiki, mystery school teachings. I'm sure I'm missing more, but she's about to tell us herself. Shehnaz Soni, I am so excited to have you be a part of the show today and share your experience and knowledge with us. What an amazing human you are. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you, Stacey, for a wonderful introduction. And yeah, I am very excited that I have learned to synchronize the right and left hemisphere. And I think that we all do that. The only difference is that some people don't acknowledge it. Some people don't realize that we are capable of doing it and we should be able to do it. It's funny because right after Alex's interview, somebody sent me this message saying, "Can you please make sure you mention how to create more playgrounds in your next book?"
Yes, I
And I,
love
I
it.
thought that was hilarious because truly, yeah. And I love that because to me, I think it's time that we share whatever wisdom we have acquired, right? By doing certain things that helps us and that helps other because the more people are happy, the less challenging the world will be.
Yeah, I agree. And as we're about to get into, everything is connected. And, finding that happiness and finding who we are and how it all works is really, one of my missions. And we're going to get into so many fun things today. But I don't think we can honestly start anywhere until you share your story with us. Because, I mean, you are truly inspiring and you are truly an alchemist of your life. I mean, you're living proof that our reality is in our control. And so I would love for you to share where you came from and a little bit about your background.
Okay. Since I've done this so many times, I'm going to see what I pick up from the hologram this time. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that one of the things that I like to empower other people with is that when you are born in a place where you feel like you're in captivity, especially when you have this free spirit like I had, and you feel like you're being stopped and stumped at every instance you want to grow and bloom. That was my beginning in my childhood, in a community, in a culture, in a religion that was very one track mind. Even the people, they all were living a little bit like a gloomy life to some extent, and they didn't think that there was any way out. So I was born and raised in Karachi, Pakistan, and my childhood was always me. I remember looking through the window, looking at the outside, and wondering when am I going to be able to fly? Right, looking up in the sky. Like so, I would always look at the like Earth and see as Earth as my like help me escape this confinement, right? And that was very much in me. Even though I was a very happy person in general, like people would say that you're always smiling, you're always so I do have that outlook in life, but in my heart, I was struggling with the fact that I am not able to do what I want to do. And I think that that quest was in there, but I did everything in my power to do. Like I prayed, I was very, very good, obedient daughter. I made sure that I wanted to, like, I did everything good in the school. I would always get my first, second, third grade. I became a valedictorian. Like I had this quest of doing everything as best as you could because that was kind of keeping me somewhat excited.
Mhm.
However, when I had arranged marriage and I came to LA, and after that story with my first husband, and recognizing that now I'm in a playground where I can do a lot of things, but I have no skill. I don't speak the language. I don't know how to drive. I have no friends. I don't even know how to wear the clothing. And on top of that, I'm with a husband who is a whole new, story for me. So there were so many variables in the equation that it was a little overwhelming. The first year was very challenging, very hard. And I had to make sure I integrated all that. I could only write letters to my mom because I couldn't call, couldn't afford it. So all those things, I think like it's like so many challenges. And I think that, like they say, right, the more challenges, the more stronger you become. And I didn't realize that that was the foundation of who I was meant to be 30 years after. Can you believe that? It's been 30 years. So, yes.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And you've been through a lot, moving. You mentioned briefly, guys, these are just the footnotes. But yeah, moving from Pakistan, you met your husband. I think I had heard like an hour prior to marrying him. You didn't speak English. You moved to America and it didn't work out, literally right when you moved to America. And you're just stuck here with no knowledge of our culture. And I think it's so amazing where you've come from. I want to get into the quantum world a little because I feel like your story is such a good example for some of the things that we're about to go through. When I think of all that is quantum, and I would love to hear more from you because I am not a scientist. I think of all of the energy that's moving in the background, or so we think, and it's connecting everything together and it's interacting and it's constantly just running and it's fluid. And I think people have a hard time understanding this because often we're taught you have to see it to believe it. And in the quantum world, it's not necessarily about seeing, it's more about feeling. And so I would love for you to just kind of explain what quantum means, if that's the right term, and then maybe the difference between more traditional sciences, which I know you're also a part of, and then the quantum world. And why is there such a big division?
Okay. So yeah, the word quantum actually means it's a discrete amount of energy. So basically, quantum is just a way to gauge. That's
Okay.
that's it. It's a measurement unit, right? Now, the quantum physics versus classical physics, right? So, I mean, like, quantum physics was introduced uh, to us from our understanding more than 100 years ago, right? However, classical physics is the only one that has been taught in school, that everybody understands it. The quantum physics was never given the credit or the value, partly because quantum physics basically makes you realize that nothing is supposed to stay the same. So if you really think about it, every single thing that we have in our system right now, the religion, the marriage, all the systems are very much all about classical physics. Because like quantum physics basically says that you are a moving, you're a moving molecule from that standpoint. So if you really think about it, and when you understand that you are not supposed to stay in one place, you're not supposed to do anything that you don't feel like doing, right? So you have to be moving with it. And if you really see everything with your eyes, if you can see it, you will realize that there is nothing that is static, everything is dynamic. So if you really understand that and you actually embody that, then of course it's very hard to control you, right?
Yes.
So that is the big reason that we are, it's almost like, if you want to teach people to follow a certain, lifestyle, right? Like, like you have to do certain things, you have to do this, you have to go to church on this day, whatever that story is, those are kind of more like it's like very boundary, right? And boundary comes with classical physics because you can actually create a line and you can make lots and lots of boxes, right? So quantum physics completely messes all of that up, which is the reason, I mean, the chaos theory and all of that, it's almost like it's hard for people to kind of like say, my God, I mean, how am I going to control you if you're going to just do like today you're an artist, tomorrow you're a doctor? I mean, what's wrong with you, right? But what I'm saying is, why can't we actually appreciate that we can be all of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good description too, is that you can't control quantum physics. And that's kind of the way we base our reality. We're going to get into reality in a little bit, but I think that's a perfect description is that it's not something that can be controlled. It's not something that's supposed to be stagnant. It's supposed to be fluid. I think that we get into trouble when we get stuck on repeat. We get stuck in our cycles and in our comfort. And so let's talk a little bit about limitations within the quantum world. Why is it that we limit ourselves? With your story, it seems like, oh my goodness, like if you didn't have the curiosity to move through this and the belief, I want to get into a little bit about curiosity and belief. What is it that causes us to limit ourselves? And then maybe with like a scientific lens, what does that actually do? What does it look like in the quantum world when we start limiting and doubting?
Right. So the main reason we limit ourselves is because of fear.
Mm,
And there's fear of something, right? Fear of losing people, fear of losing job, fear of losing the perception, whatever. I mean, it's all fear based. So basically, it holds you back because you're not honoring who you are, right? Like
mm,
because the quantum world basically accepts the fact that you are not going to be static, you're going to be moving, you're going to be changing. Everything's changing around you because you are constantly, your thoughts are changing and your thoughts are affecting your reality. So that dance that you are playing with is going to be a constant feedback loop going on with you. So quantum world accepts that diversity that is built in characteristics for human, right? And that is the challenges that we are blocking ourselves from exuding our light properly when we are constantly like shunned in every way which way because we have to fit in somebody else's square, right? Somebody has created a square and they're saying you have to fit in it. So the thing is that I can understand the dichotomy that if you have like million people who live in a city, right, and you have to make sure that they all kind of follow certain rules, right? So there are ways to do that. There are ways to do it where you want to follow the rule rather than me telling you that if you don't follow the rule, I'm going to put you in a prison. You see my point? There are ways you can make people dance with you, and that to me is very important that you understand that rather than like if you do dictatorship like Hitler did, right? That type of dictatorship doesn't serve anyone. Ultimately nobody remembers you as good, and plus you're not feeling good either because you're trying to control people. It's a lot of damn work.
yeah.
So right, so the whole idea is that if you open the door to let people be who they need to be or want to be, like in my mind, when you watch Star Trek, right, it shows that everybody's doing what they really really want to do.
Mm,
So if you're doing what you really, really want to do, nobody will have to check that did you make it to work. Nobody has to make sure that you're there because you actually are dying to do it. You're
yeah.
not doing it because you want to make sure that somebody sees you show up at 8 and leave at 5. And like you're not doing it just because you feel like you want a paycheck. You see my point? So there are all these parameters that, I mean, I can go on this
Yeah,
subject.
I love, what you're bringing up here is basically like is when we follow our passion, if everyone could just follow their passion, it's like everything is going to just work beautifully. It's like this choreographic dance, the universe, and everything works together. And I think when we start to box ourselves in, how we were talking about, the world is fluid. I like to think of it as currents. I always think of energy as currents. And when we become very fixed in this fluid world, okay, well, we're going against the current of life, right? That's
Exactly. Exactly. Not only that, what's happening is you're not feeling good doing it because truly, if you ask people who are controlling other people, at the end of the day, they're not happy.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody's really happy when they're controlling because it's a lot of damn work. I mean, a lot of damn work, right? So not only that, they're usually not very satisfied because when you're trying to control somebody else, they're not going to ever really do everything you want them to do,
Yeah,
right? Because they are also not doing it out of love, they're doing it out of fear. So what
yeah.
you're doing is multiplying fear.
Exactly. And okay, this is perfect. I want to talk about manifestation. Because when we build energy on top of each other, that's what we are emitting, right? And so when you have people or ourselves and we're not feeling our best, that's the energy that we're outputting. Therefore, I would
100%.
love to hear you about this. That's the energy that we're going to see. It's a reflection of us. So when we speak about manifestation, can you speak a little bit about the importance of a mixture between our intention and then also the idea of how what we put out is what we're going to see. It's what we're going to get. How does that work in a quantum sense?
Right. So manifestation basically is the embodiment of your dream, right? And intention is the driver. So basically, and you're the only one who knows your intention. So let's say if I'm going to the gym with an intention that I want to look so hot that the man can ask me out, right? Which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But as long as I'm aware of that intention, then when I'm working out, whatever I'm doing with that in mind because I already have decided that's my intention. If my intention is that I'm going to the gym and I want to be so strong internally and externally that I can handle life. I can handle my role as a mother and an author and a whole bunch of other roles. That is my goal, and that's going to show up as well. It doesn't matter, intentions are not wrong. It's just you need to be clear about what your intention is and what you're doing with it. And ultimately, when you are with people whom you want to do, let's say, friendship with or romantic relationship with, I think that it would be so good if you can know the intention. Because then, you can, if your intention would be clear and nobody's hiding it, then even the marriage can last. Because the reason it doesn't last is because people have different intentions, they have different goals, they are also wanting to watch a different movie.
Yes. Let's talk about movies. Let's talk about reality because our reality is a movie and our
Yes.
reality is a mirror of us and what we're outputting. I would love to just hear you talk freely on this. What is reality in the quantum sense? How does this work in your with your perspective?
So basically, reality is very much affected by how you interplay in the world and how you perceive in the world, right? So your perception affects your reality. That is like the first thing, because there's all these, deeper feelings. But the very first thing is your perception and how you come into it or how you interplay with it. So if people see that, why are they doing something and for what? Like if the people can see that dance, right? Like, if they can look at it, like if somebody's making a video of you and me talking right now, right? That person is seeing that, okay, why are these two girls are talking? Oh, they're talking because they want to expand their consciousness, and they're talking because they are curious, or they're talking because they want to grow, right? So that observation that's being made, then it's almost like, okay, now we understand that that's why we're talking, right? So now we understand that our goal is to do that. And then we say, you know what? I love talking to you and I have so much fun, but I would love to do this while I'm on the ocean.
Mm.
Okay, let's bring the party there. You see, now the thing is, the more clear you get on what you want from it and how you can keep on adding more layers to it and make it even better for you, then what happens is that you're working from that seed that actually ends up making the flower of life pattern. Because what it is that we're both wanting the same thing. It's pretty clear. And we both are willing to dance with each other because it's growth for us. And then we can keep extending it and keep expanding it. So what you are doing is we're co-creating our reality by putting our intentions and layers and doing that quantum dance. So that requires a self-awareness. So that is the biggest, the most important thing is that you need to be aware of you as being the pawn in this whole Hunger game.
Yeah, it's funny, like what you were mentioning, when we have strong intentions, we're giving hints to the universe of what it is that we want to bring in. And when we don't have strong intentions, it's almost like the universe is going to decide for us. It's like we can either get tossed and tumbled around by being unaware of ourselves and unaware of our energy and unaware of what we want, or we can be very specific, and that kind of helps bring things in. I want to talk about perspective for a minute because it's my understanding that there are as many different perspectives in this world as there are souls. And what's interesting is I think it takes a while for people to understand that, hey, everyone else is not living in my perspective. They all have their own beliefs. Can you explain a little bit about how this choreographed universe works with all of the different perspectives?
So before I go there, I wanted to make a one point on the tossing and tumbling part, is that when people are tossed and tumbled, most of these people end up choosing to live in a victim mindset, because then they blame everything else that is happening to them. And we have all had many stories. Like I have many stories where I can easily say, my God, I was a victim. Yes. But I didn't stay there, which is the reason you and I are talking right now, right? So that is the journey. Now, perspective. So one of the things that we need to understand, and in my book, I explained that very well in the later chapter 11 and 12 especially, is that, so it has been proven by Prebam and neuroscientists that our brain is a hologram, right?
Mm.
So if you, and it makes sense to me a lot, because when you really think about the holographic principle and how that actually is like, so the way the hologram works is that you can have a recording, but it's not just a static recording, it's a dynamic recording, right? So if you have a recording, depending on the perspective, you can pick up whatever part of that recording you want to listen to, right? So The perspective is something that, you're given an infinite channel. I'm given an infinite channel. You can decide to dial whatever channel you want right now while you're even talking to me. And same goes with me. So the very fact that we have infinite amount of channels to dial from, it's very hard for you to match the perspective of two different people unless they really are passionate about something that they're doing together,
Mhm.
right? Because it is a choice. Perspective is a choice. And sometimes it is a choice that you're aware of. Sometimes it is a choice that you're not aware of. And that's where it gets kind of interesting because people don't give it a credit, but perspective affects your perception. And that's where it gets challenging in the world that we live in right now, is that if you already have decided that certain type of people, like stereotypes, right? Or stereotypes, or, like when you put people in a certain category because based on their race or their color or their, whatever story we have been hearing about them, then what happens is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So if you see somebody and you say, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to have a good time because this person is giving me, I mean, I can just see that their skin color is conflicting with my mindset that it's a safe skin color, let's say. What happens as soon as you added that in the storyline, you are basically broadcasting all this fear towards them. And they are thinking that, okay, this is another person who doesn't accept me for who I am. So they're getting mad at you. So now what happens is like both of you guys are getting mad at each other for different reason. Your perspective is different, but it's feeding into the same pool and it creates that mess, the violence.
Yeah. And we can, each you can feel that within each other as well. It's like we're literally vibrating that towards another, and then they're picking it up, and they might not be aware in the mind that it's happening, but your subconscious and your body feels it, which then transfers to your mind, and then it all just starts getting out of whack, right?
Exactly, exactly. And see, that is right. And that is the hidden dance that nobody sees. And then everybody looks at it. And then some people, like, media, for example, they would take the story and even make it more so that all the people who are following, like feeling victim a little bit, they're going to be all taking sides. And now what you've done is you've multiplied fear and you've multiplied violence.
Yes, and now we're all living in that. Unless you can escape that. How would you recommend escaping these limitations of reality?
Well, the very first thing you have to do is that anytime when you're buying into anything, right? Like anytime you're accepting something as your reality, you have to have some sort of way to kind of gauge that is this something that I really want in my reality? So like you decide, first of all, are you going to listen to all the story that they share on media that's about violence? Or are you going to listen to somebody who's empowering and inspiring you? You see my point? So right away, when you start deciding that you're not going to listen to all the things, then media ultimately is not going to be able to, it's like supply versus demand. So media is not going to have, like, they're not going to have enough people who are interested in the violence because majority of the people are doing what you and I are doing. So as soon as you change that, then now they're saying, oh my God, everybody wants to listen to love and empowerment and inspiration. So now they're like, okay, well, we will have to sell that because we really have no choice. You see my point? So to me, it's like, don't eat McDonald's if you don't agree with the fast food. That's
Yeah,
what it's.
exactly. What you focus on becomes your reality. What you're putting in front of yourself, that's what you're going to experience.
So please be conscious about what you're letting in your life because everything that you're letting in is ultimately multiplying.
Oh, I love that. Very good note. Okay, I want to get into time real quick for a minute. We know obviously time is man-made. It helps us here in this physical world, on this physical plane. It's interesting though, because I hear a lot of people, especially in the quantum world and the spiritual world, time is not linear. Okay, everything is happening all at once. Can you explain this with a scientific perspective?
Yeah, because first of all, I mean, when you really understand that how everything that we interact with in our reality is a light shadow play, which means that by the time light hits us, for us to even see the photon, to show the interaction that you and I are having, when you really measure the clock, nothing is happening instantaneously. Nothing is happening. Everything is happening within a time, right? It takes like the sun to reach Earth, right? About 8 minutes or something like that. So what I'm saying is that nothing is instantaneous. Not only that, the very fact is whatever we interplay with is partly based on our thought, right? Based on our intention, based on our experiences, based on our track records. So to some extent, we're all kind of watching a solo movie of our own universe, and we all believe that we're all in the same boat, but we're not. So that is the reason when we get so attached to the time that we lose our soul, right? Because time should be used as a tool. time should not be used as something that dictates your life,
Yes,
your
I
choices.
yes, because I've noticed I am lucky enough to have figured this out, a little while back, but it's like, okay, so here's a very classic example. We all work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. The weekend comes, we can't wait for the weekend, and it's Sunday afternoon, and you're like, man, I got to go back to work on Monday. Okay, when you are focusing on something that has not yet happened, it's like you're collapsing the moment, right? Because you're bringing that future of what you do not want right here in your present life, because what we were talking about, that's what you're focused on. But I've realized if you can stay present in the moment, like in the second, in the moment, it seems as though time just stretches out. Time becomes longer, and it's like time just disappears. And I always hear people say, like when you're doing your passion, when you're channeling, time does disappear because you're focused in that moment. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know like you do so much. Like, we might not have discussed it today, but I've listened to your interviews. You're all over the place. You're working with NASA, you're doing interviews, you're doing spiritual conferences or classes or writing books. You've got kids. Like, oh my gosh, how do you do all of this? How do you make time work for you?
Right. So basically, and the term is time dilation, and it is actually a term, right? So because, Einstein proved it, right? That space and time are relative. And the thing is that if you are attached to the fact that, you are what is coming to you and you're not even looking forward to it, you're already feeding the fear into it, right? So then, and then you're worried that, oh, I don't want to miss it, right? So now again, you're adding another layer of fear on it. And then when it happens, you are like, oh my God, I'm here and I'm not even happy, right? So when you live that type of life, then time is not your friend anymore. Time is more like a reminder that you're not able to flow with life.
Yeah.
So time dilation to me means that everything that I do, I'm doing it with intention. Like I know that if I do this, what is the reason I'm doing it, right? Like I have a reason because I know that I choose to work at NASA. I'm not working at NASA because I don't have a choice. We all have a choice. Yeah, of course, whatever choices you make will have a consequences, right? And then you have to live with those as well. But at the end of the day, we always have choices. We choose to do certain things because it serves us while we are whatever we're doing at that particular time. So for me, the whole thing is that everything that I do, since I'm aware of why I'm doing it and what is my ultimate goal from it, it takes me away from that feeling of being trapped. So
Yes.
when you're not in that trap feeling, you're liberating yourself, right? And at the end of the day, like even right now, like I went to work and I went to NASA and it was very jam-packed meeting back and back. And I have gotten a promotion. So now I have more responsibility. So I was doing all that, right? And then, on the way back, my son calls because he has some things he's needs me to help him with. So I did that right away. And then it was interesting because, I knew that I have you. And then right after that, I'm doing my quantum coaching session. So I was thinking that, okay, I wanted to just kind of feel a little bit fresh for this. So I took a nap for 30 minutes. And even when I took a nap, because even though I had an alarm on, but I was thinking, because I'm all about thinking. So I was thinking that, okay, if alarm does not wake me up, let's say, and I don't wake up, right? What's the worst thing that's going to happen is that Stacy will be like, my God, Shehnaz did not show up, which is not necessarily the way I roll. But I was like, okay, yeah, that's a possibility, right? And then my next appointment may miss me. I mean, those are all the worst case scenario. I had to think about it before I even took a nap. And then I said, you know what? If that happens, then it's obvious that I need to make sure that I manage my life a little bit better. And if it happens, ultimately, Stacy will forgive me, the client will forgive me. It's going to all work itself out because we're all human. So what it is that you have to give yourself a permission to kind of like, while you're understanding your own fluidity and while you're figuring out that how are you going to squeeze all these things and how are you going to dance with time, you have to give yourself a permission to play
Yes.
and take some chances with people. Because worst to worst, what's going to happen, Stacey, if you would have gotten mad, then I would be like, okay, you know what? This is, I'm sorry, but if you're mad, then I can't help you. And we go our separate way, right? So technically, we have basically, it's a choice again, right?
Yeah.
It's a choice. And I think knowing your personality, I don't think you would do that because you're like, why would you limit yourself to talking to someone that you want to talk to just because they overslept? Because you're like, wow, I guess she must be tired. I mean, she needed that nap. You see my point? So when we all start understanding that, I mean, right now we're not living in that world right now, which is why people are so fearful about these things. But what I'm saying is that there are places where you give yourself a permission.
Yeah.
And for me, this is where I give myself more permission because this playground I created purely out of passion and I'm figuring it out. I'm figuring it out how I'm going to dance with life, right? And so far I feel like I have learned that yeah, it works.
Yeah, give yourself permission to have fun, to play. I think that's so important. It's funny, I've talked about this on the show before, but my day job is I am a first grade teacher. So I work with kids, and
Mm.
it's been such a gift to me because it reminds us it's great being around their minds. Everything is fun. Everything is in the moment. And they
Wow.
play with everything. And it's my job to help them learn while playing. And so it's been such a gift. And I love that advice. Really, if you can just, whatever it is you're doing, just enjoy it. Treat it like it's the first time you've done it. Just play, if you have to go clean the house and you have to sweep the floor, just enjoy it. Make it part of your routine. And then, in return, because we're emitting that excitement, that joy, we are now vibrating on a higher level, which, the way energy works and like attracts like. And so it all just kind of stems from there. So I love that. That's great advice is to give yourself permission to play. Okay, I know we have to go shortly. I want to get into a little bit of the work that you're doing with NASA. And then, I'm going to ask you this question. I want to talk a little bit about ETs and star seeds, a little bit at the end. What is the Artemis program that you're working on? That's a pretty exciting one.
Yeah, so Artemis is like a twin sister of Apollo program, and that program is all about sustaining, living and sustaining in Moon, and then ultimately going to Mars. So that program, I joined the program 4 years ago, and right now, of course, we already did the first launch with the Space Launch System rocket, which I also worked on, and that basically proved us that we are able to go to the lunar orbit. And that was the key thing about it is that we can go to the lunar orbit and we can have the Orion, which is the capsule that the astronaut is going to be in. And so we were able to prove that concept. Now the second one, we want to make sure that we are able to do that with the Starship, right? That's our first mission. So to rendezvous with SLS. So that all that missions are being kind of like worked in terms of how they're going to do it and what they're going to do it. The logistic is being worked. But the mission that I'm primarily involved in is all manned mission, and they're all about living on Moon right now because that's what we're focusing on. However, at this point, we don't really know with the new leadership in America what may change, but it's going to be something that we'll just have to adopt whatever happens. But basically, the program is all about, I don't know if you've seen the show Expense, but Expense show kind of highlights the fact that we have a moon colony and we have a Mars colony and we have Earth colony. So we're kind of going in that direction.
Very nice. Yeah, that's really exciting. And didn't you mention, I might have heard you before, that you're trying to get the first woman on the moon as well?
That is the idea. The Artemis 3 mission is all about women and men. It's going to be two crew who's going to go down on the surface of the moon. And the woman has to be the first because we want to, create that. And Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo. So there's a lot of interesting thing going on with the naming convention, right? And that is one thing that I've learned is that the names are very well thought out of, which actually tells me that all of these people who are working in this dance kind of remembers in their DNA that we have been there, done that.
Yeah, yeah, very exciting. So since we're getting into the space world, I would love to know what is your opinion on life outside of us, outside of humanity? I mean, I have an opinion, but I would love to hear you.
Well, my opinion is that the life does exist in many forms, and there's a lot of intelligence beyond our comprehension all around us and beyond the earth. And those intelligence can come in many different forms and interact with us. And they have been interacting with us partly because we are not from Earth ourselves. I believe that we're also from other planet and places. And depending on whether you believe in reincarnation or anything else, what I believe in is that our DNA holds that information in memory because the wow signal has already proven that the junk DNA is actually not a junk DNA. It actually captures the signature of more than 20 alien species. So, from that perspective, we are all from other places. And the only thing is that now we're opening the door to come in contact with the higher aspect of our existence.
Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely do. You mentioned something about our DNA showing, correct me if I'm wrong, different species. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm not aware of that concept.
So if you go into the Google and type wow signal, you're
Okay.
going to get the whole PDF that explains the study that was done a long time ago, by the way. And it's interesting that there are, just like quantum physics, not many people knows about it. Similarly, wow signal, not many people knows about it. But when I looked at the article and read it, and it basically explained the fact that it was like they scientifically proved that the junk DNA is carries a signature of something that is beyond their comprehension, are kind of connecting it us with more than human, actually. So, in from that definition, all of us are more than human.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard you say before, are you a meditator? Is that something that you're interested in? Because I meditate a lot as well. And I actually speak and communicate to my guides, angels, whatever you want to call them. And I can see them. I can, speak to them. I channel with them and I do a lot of writing. And I listen to all kinds of people and psychics and channelers and intuitives. And I know you had done an interview with Elizabeth April in the past, and she does a lot with ET channels and stuff. I was curious if you have any experiences or if you know anyone who have had any experiences with beings outside of us, because in my mind, when we think of the spirit world, I agree with you. There's so much consciousness. There's so much within us. I believe we've had lives in different bodies with different experiences. And so to me, I think, well, if I can communicate with my spirit guides, I mean, the veil is thinning and we will be having more contact through meditation, through dreams and things like that. It seems completely possible to me. And I agree with you. I think people already are. Have you had any experiences with that, or do you have any friends or family or any coworkers who have?
So, as far as experiences goes in terms of interacting with something physically, I have had people sharing that, especially in the town that I live in. I was very surprised that a lot of people have had experiences with directly interacting with the grays, for example, and things like that. Like really, like it seems like one thing I've noticed as a trend is that people who don't live in a larger city or in a places that's very crowded, they tend to experience more of these beings that are they look from a different world, right? So there is something about when you live in a very busy place with the city and people, everybody's vibration is interacting. So it kind of blocks any kind of visibility if you even have it. It seems to me that there's more chances when you live in a place where there's more fluidity there because it's not like a lot of busyness going on. But I had someone come reach out to me even right after my book and actually confided in me something, and I can't share too much about it because that person is very much protective of their identity. But bottom line was that they work in a very high position and they have been a contactee for a very long time, for decades. And they had like a ship just come directly in their backyard, and then they had a direct contact with them. And it took them a while to integrate that. So what I'm saying is that the sci-fi film that we watch is actually happening with a lot of people in their real life. It's just the only reason they are not opening and coming out and saying all that is partly because we want the world to be able to receive that information and not throw stone at them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's especially when a lot of people are not open to an idea or when it's like a new idea to us, even though this has been around for a long time, it is a fear. It's like a fear of judgment and a fear of losing your position. But yeah, it's very interesting to me to see what the future holds and everything. I think it's all going in a very positive direction. And I do agree with you. I love when you were mentioning how in very busy, crowded areas, because everyone's energy is just all over the place, that's kind of how I think with spirits. Like I talk a lot about grounded spirits and ghosts and things. And in the daytime, people are all out and all of our energy is out, crowded the world. And then when you get to kind of that 3 o'clock, middle of the night hour, energy is more still. And I believe that's when it's easier for other energy, other consciousness to come and communicate with us. And I think that's why a lot of people, I do a lot in the dream work. But I think that's why a lot of people have these stories. Oh, every day at 3 o'clock, I wake up, or 4 a.m., I wake up and I had this dream or I had a visitation, from a past loved one. And to me, I mean, consciousness all works the same. It doesn't matter if we're talking about, extraterrestrials or whatever they would be called, and that's what we call them, or past loved ones or spirit guides or angels. It's just energy, it's consciousness, it's personalities. And it's my belief that we communicate the same way. So through energy and all. But
Exactly. And then, you live in a place which is the oldest city in the whole America, right? When I came there and I was like, I took the ghost tour. So you live in a place that's very rich with spirits because so much has happened there.
and so I mean, not all good either, which that's kind of my opinion with the grounded spirits and ghosts is like when you have very traumatic events, it's almost like that spirit, the mindset of that spirit is stuck in that kind of loop, how we were kind of talking about earlier with our lives. And it's hard for that spirit to kind of get out and pass on to, I don't know the terminology, but to the next phase or the next dimension where they're more lighthearted. And so that's why a lot of times I think these spirits kind of hang around these old cities. There's been war, there's been all kinds of stuff going on. But yeah, I live in a very old city. There's lots of I did the ghost tours for about 10 years. I was a guide.
Oh, you were the guide. I think
Wow.
when next time I come there, I think that I would like to do a ghost tour with you.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Let me know when you come. I'll show you around. We'll talk about all kinds of crazy stuff.
I think so. Yeah, I know. San Agustin is amazing. I'm excited about it. And yes, I'll definitely be coming that way and we'll get connected over there because it'll be
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to have you over. So,
fun.
well, Shanaz, that's about everything I have today. I want to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. I know you are incredibly busy and you've got another meeting to go hop on shortly. Is there any last words or advice that you would like to give people to help us live happier, healthier lives?
Yes. Well, the first thing I would say is that you being you can make the change in the world that you want to see, right? So you are the change you're seeking in others. And the more you honor yourself, you will radiate light and the magic will happen for you and for everybody that you love, right? So just give yourself a permission to kind of open your wings, right? It's almost like take that deep breath and open your wings and give yourself a permission to be, right? That's the dance I want to create. So I also wanted to say that I'm actually going to be doing something that if anybody's interested in joining me, I have been invited by Gaia Sphere in March, mid-March. So I'm going there as a public speaker in Boulder, Colorado. And then 2 weeks after, I'm invited by Alex to be part of the Ascension that he's doing in Austin, which is also in person. I'm going to be speaking there as well. And in both of these places, I'm actually still creating my art that I'm going to have, but I'm thinking about basically having fun, like a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward for people who's going to show up like yourself, who is curious, who is ready, and we can have that quantum dance with each other because I know that when I go there and everybody that I meet, our lives will not be the same after that. And
Yes.
I'm very excited about that. And what I'm saying is that start choosing things that excites you like a child.
Yes, I agree. Let the excitement be our direction in life and allow yourself permission to be, to play. Thank you so much, Shanaz. Guys, you got to go check out her book, The Quantum Being. Shanaz, how can people find you also?
So basically my name right there shows up, shehnazsoni.com. So if they go on my website, they can find me. And if they're interested in my journey, then sign up because that's one way I'm going to keep everybody aware. Because right now that's pretty much what I'm doing is public speaking and doing podcasts and writing my next book.
Yes, so exciting. Well, thank you so much, Shanaz. We'll have all of your links down below. It's been such an honor to learn and to connect with you. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, I hope you use it to inspire those around you. And I'll see you next time on In a Spiritual Sense. For those looking to connect further, please feel free to send emails to info@inaspiritualsense.com or hit me up on Instagram, where you can find weekly inspiration and updates. I look forward to connecting with you.